Hello friends, welcome back to Verified. So today video is specifically on matters host and hosting, and this is because about hosting has become an issue to majority of the winners, and hopefully by the end of this video I would have sorted out many of the questions and concerns that might be bothering you. So the first one, as you can see, I have some few notes in terms of questions. And the first one says, when your host decides not to host you anymore. This is in the case where you got a host, someone willing to host you. And by that I mean someone who provided you with the permanent address, and you used that address in the DS260 form. But later on, this host decides not to host you because of one reason or the other. So in this case, what do you do? The first thing is you should look for another host to give you the address to which your documents will be sent to once you are in the United States. So you look for a new host. And secondly, you don't need to unlock your DS260 form to update it with these details. No, you need to wait for the time of the interview for you to change the details of the new host. That is the answer to that first statement. The second statement goes, when your host decides to only host you and not your family members. So some hosts will be willing to host just a part of your family, maybe because of the financial achievement and the United States federal government guidelines, the poverty guidelines. So if the poverty guidelines restricts your host to only host you as the principal applicant and not additional people, then what can you do? My advice is this: if you have found a host, stick to that host, because finding a host may sometimes be very tricky, as with the case of many of you. Getting a host is not sometimes an easy thing to do. So if you found one and very willing to host you, but is not able to host many people or several number of individuals in your family, stick to that host. What you will do, if you can't get another host who can comfortably host the whole of your family, but you have this who can only host you and not your family, then you can decide to continue with the entire process, the DV process, up to the interview with your family. And you do the interview as though you are going with the whole of your family at one time. And then after the successful interview, then you can decide to leave the members of your family behind for some time, and then go alone and be sponsored by this host, and then work your way out, get some work and start working, and let your family come and join you. Remember, after the interview, and specifically after the medical examination, you have up to 6 months period for you to immigrate to the US. So within these 6 months, you can go alone, be sponsored by this host, and then find your way out, work, get some job, and get some money, and get your family to come and join you once you settle in your own apartment. That will be the best answer. Don't lose the host. If you can't get another one, stick to the host, go alone, and then bring your family later on. Number 3, when your host only decides to give you address but not sponsor you. To answer this, remember that there is a difference between a host and a sponsor. A host only provides you with the permanent address, and a sponsor is the person who takes the responsibility of catering for everything that you'll need once you land in the United States. So if you have a host that is not in a position to sponsor you, you are still safe. You can get a different sponsorship. Maybe you have enough money to sponsor yourself, or you can find another person who is willing to sponsor you. So you will use the address of the host and get a secondary sponsor, a second person to sponsor you. I hope that point is clear. The fourth one, when you can't get a host. Let's say you've been selected a winner and you've tried as much as possible to get a host, but you can't. If you are in that situation, and this is a rare situation because there are many ways of looking for a host, but if this happens to you that you can't get a host, you can decide to rent a hotel or an Airbnb, and the address of that hotel or that Airbnb will be your permanent address, and that's what you will use for the permanent address. That is the only solution. Lastly, how to easily get a host. Now, I know this will attract attention of most of you. How do you get a host? In my earlier video, I've spoken about this. The easiest way to get a sponsor is by you socializing with people. Only through social will you be able to get a person to host you. And nowadays we have a lot of social platforms. And in those social platforms, you will find many groups of people living abroad, and especially those living in the US. And you'll also specifically find groups specific to your country, and not one group, but many groups of people living in the US. So make use of the social media. Create friends. Go to those groups, join the groups, interact with those people. They are the same people who sponsor us when we land in the US. The other means is through your church. Your church has branches in the US, and you can have good rapport with the members of your church worldwide, and they will be willing to sponsor you. What you need to is to socialize. You get social. The other way is through relatives. You might be having relatives over in the US. Maybe your cousin, your sister, your brother, your parents. If you have relatives, make use of the relatives. They might host you, or they might find someone else to host you. Relatives can really help you out in getting a host. The other way is by using your friends. Maybe you have friends that immigrated earlier before you to the US. Your friends can be very important in getting a host. If they themselves can't host you, they have a chain of friends over in the US that they can link you to and get the sponsorship. In fact, majority of people who immigrate to the US, they are not sponsored by relatives or church members or any other ways, but through friends, a friend of a friend. So make use of friends. So create friendships, and through friendship, then you can get your host easily. I hope everything is clear now, but if you have questions, please consider asking in the comment section. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not, because many more is coming. Subscribe to the channel, and let's meet in the next video.